How would you say that someone can provide, say, friendship or counsel and positive relation while avoiding affirming other people's egos? I know that in some of the communication that I've had with patients, I realized later that I could be at times providing false reassurance in a place where I may not have the answers, but I'm just trying to, give a positive regard. But I think a lot of people may end up realizing at some point that some of the relationships that they have made with people have been based on affirmation of ego. Like it could feel even very supportive if you encourage a person to be as they a certain way, but it may end up being that it's you know more of an egoistic thing than a truly a positive and caring relationship.
Yes. I think that is a very valid distinction. And I think you solve that by being truly respectful of people as opposed to trying to manipulate them. If you just want to make them feel better, well, then you'll tell them the things that they want to hear. You'll tell them the things, oh, you're getting better every day, and you're doing so well. And sometimes they need encouragement, but they don't need manipulation. You can encourage them without leading them to think that things are better or worse than they are. That's manipulation. So if it's just respect, then you don't try to lead them anyplace. If you just respect people, you can talk to them. You can point out other possibilities maybe that they haven't thought of. You can just be friends with them. Just sit and hold their hand and not say anything. You can do those things. But when you start to say, I'm going to help fix this person by making them more cheerful. So I'm going to tell them that, yeah, I talked to the doctor the other day and he says, you're really doing well. You've been making great strides. Congratulations. And that's not true. But you're just telling them that because they'd like to hear it and makes them feel better. You're not being helpful. You're just setting them up for disappointment. You're setting them up for them to experience failed again. So that's not really helpful. So you have to know when you're manipulating, whether it's trying to make somebody feel better or trying to make somebody feel worse. If you're trying to get a reaction, a particular mindset across, I'm going to help this person out by making them more cheerful. So I'll tell them things that cheer them up, even if they're not true, because then they'll be cheerful and then they'll see they'll see more cheerful things in the world if they're more cheerful, and this is going to help them. Well, that's a mixed bag. That can backfire just as easily and probably more likely than it helps. It can help, I guess, under some very specific situations, but in those situations where the truth falls in on them eventually anyway, you make it worse. Now, if you can arrange for the truth to never fall in upon them, you've painted a rosy picture, and if you can somehow arrange that rosy picture to always be there and never crash, then okay, maybe you've helped them, but that's hard to arrange. Eventually, sooner or later, they have a crash with reality. They have to deal with that's the way it is. And then they had this little bit of hope and it got squished. It's going to be real hard to get any more hope again because they've done this a couple of times and get squished.
How can you trust anyone else at that point?
Exactly.
And how can you trust your feelings when everything sounded so great and yet you felt that it was hollow because that it's not the truth?
Yeah. So it's just, you have to not manipulate, even if you think the manipulation will be helpful. That's how most of us deal with reality. We try to manipulate reality to be the way we want it. We want everything to come out the way we like it to come out. We want our children to grow up and be professionals. We want our boss to think that we're wonderful and give us a raise. We want this, we want that. We'd like more money. We'd like more stature in the community. We'd like our neighbors to not play loud music, on Saturday night. We have all these things. So when what they do is they go about manipulating things to be the way they want it. They suck up to the boss because that'll help them be in the boss's favor. They mention to their neighbor about how they weren't able to sleep last Saturday night because of the noise, and they do this and they do that, and they try to fix things. Well, sometimes that does fix. Sometimes the neighbors are just didn't think about disturbing somebody, and it'll help. But most of the time, it doesn't. The neighbors were loud because they really didn't give a damn whether it bothers you or not, because they were too self-centered to really care. Now, that is more likely the case than they just didn't understand. So if you try to manipulate, you typically will make things worse. It's just not good, but we do that. We say, here's life. How can I manipulate life to be more the way I want it? How can I manipulate people to be the way they should be rather than the way they are? How can I manipulate my children to be studious and interested in getting good grades and all the things I think they should be? Well, all that works. You start pushing on your children to do their homework and pushing on them to do this and pushing on them better grades. Pretty soon, you're going to end up with a child, that's taking drugs so that he can fit. You can forget all the manipulation he's getting. You're going to create just the opposite of what you want. You tend to create your fears. What you fear, you create. So anyway, that kind of manipulation is normal. That's what everybody does. They try to manipulate the events, the world, and so on to come out the way they want it to. But that's dysfunctional. That's part of that profoundly sick society that we do that. The way to live your life is to let things happen the way they do. Let people be how they are. Encourage them. Help them see bigger pictures, but don't push them. Don't force them. Don't try to manipulate them. Give them guidance, but don't give them orders. Now, of course, that doesn't apply to a 3-year-old. You have to give them orders. Don't play in the street. And if they disobey, you have to put a lock on the gate so they can't get out into the street. That's different. I'm talking about adults here. With adults, you need to let them be for the most part. You can always try to be helpful. You can give suggestions. You can offer things that might be helpful, but you never try to manipulate them. Let them be. Now, if you do that, they may blow you off in the near term. You're talking to your child and you tell your child something you think that they need to know, and they don't want to hear it. So they say, I don't want to do that. But they listen to you anyway. They get it. If you're not trying to manipulate them, they actually process it. If you're trying to manipulate them, they reject it. So even if it looks like they're rejecting it, if you're not manipulating, they're probably processing it. And it'll turn out to be to their benefit that you were talking to them with respect that they're due. So the way to live your life is accept what happens and then deal with it as positively as possible and learn from it. If the way you dealt with it didn't turn out too well, learn from it. Why didn't it? What went wrong? What was it that you didn't understand or didn't expect? Learn from it. So the next time you don't make that mistake again. And then next time you have to make choices, make the best choice you can make. Do your due diligence to think about it and then decide what's your low entropy move, make the move and learn from it. And that's how you go through life. And no, you don't ever know what the right answer is. The right answer is always elusive. There's lots of answers, and there's 1,000 wrong answers for every one right answer. So how do you know you got the right answer or one of the 2 or 3 right answers? You don't, but you do your best. You make your choice. You learn from it. That's how you grow up. You don't get terrified of making wrong answers because you don't know the answer, and therefore you never actually make any choices. Well, that's a choice. No choice is a choice, and it doesn't help you grow up any at all. So that's the way to live life. Let the world be the way it is. Deal with it positively and learn from the results of your choices. That optimizes life, and you'll find that that enables all these people in your life that you'd like to manipulate, so that your kids study and grow up to be wise professionals, and that your husband stops throwing his dirty socks and underwear on the floor, and that your all these things in life that you'd like to change to suit you better, all those things will start to straighten themselves out as soon as you stop trying to manipulate them. Because one of the reasons they're like that and they're persistent is because they're pushing back, just like the dog that you push on the side. As you push at those things, you make them more solid, not less solid. Your efforts to change turn into keeping it the same, no change, or actually regressing deeper into whatever it is they're doing to annoy you, just because now they're starting to enjoy annoying you because you're constantly picking at them to do things differently than they do. So anyhow, that optimizes everything. And one of the big things that I learned somewhere in my 20s was that if you stop trying to control things and just make good choices, you'll find that you optimize everything that happens. It's like if you were the master of the universe and could change anything and everybody, you couldn't have possibly figured out to make it this good. You would have messed it up somehow. But if you don't try to control it at all, it'll optimize into something that's twice as good as what you could have done if you were the master of the universe. It's actually better than what you could have done if you magically always got your way. It just self-optimizes perfectly. So that's not something that is intuitively obvious. Most people think if I don't try to manipulate it, then it'll all go to hell in a handbasket. It'll all be terrible. The only reason that life is livable is that I'm able to manipulate it at least some of the time to be the way I want it. And they think that if they just gave up trying to manipulate the future, that everything would just go to hell in a handbasket and it would be terrible. And that's not the case. Everything will get better. Much of the dysfunction you find and the difficulties are because you are trying to manipulate the future in the way you know it would be best. Because everybody else out there is also trying to manipulate the future the way they know it would be best. For you trying to make it happen this way, there's somebody else who feels like it ought to be another way to be best. And you have all these people each trying to manipulate each other to make them act the way they'd like to see them act. And as you can see, what you get out of that is chaos. You don't get people growing up and getting better. Everybody's feeling pushed. Everybody pushes back. When they push back, they get more push. So they push back more. And so goes life, year after year after year, until you give up and are old and crotchety and don't ever smile and so on. And that's not a good way to live your life. And that's not how to optimize it. Just let life be. Make your best choices and go on with it and figure you'll learn from them. And that's a much better way to live than trying to make things come out the way you know are best.
I imagine it's also a really great way to socialize because and identify people that are healthy to have long-term or positive relationships with. Because if you have this absence of push and pull and the sense of planning and intrusion from another person's thoughts or actions on you, which can be, much less harmful or directed than judgments. But if you meet someone who is sort of, more free-spirited, then I think that's where there's a greater possibility of having an unconditional relationship, and which would be a loving one.
Sure. If you have a persona, if you act your life rather than be it, if you act it and you try to play a role that you think other people will like, you will find that very few people will really like you, because what you're asking them to like is not you, but your persona, who you think that is more likable. Well, other people know immediately that that's a persona. And you think that you're being very clever, that persona, they don't know what's behind it or where you really are, but everybody does. We communicate mind to mind all the time. It's not just spoken language, facial expression, language, but there's also mind to mind language going on all the time between people. And people know when you are trying to manipulate them. They get that sense of it. Well, maybe your 3-year-olds don't care much because they need to be manipulated in some sense and they appreciate it. But I'm talking again about adults with adults. People are aware of that and they don't like that. That feels empty to them. It's not sincere. And if you just are the way you are, and people happen to like you because you just are the way you are, then those are your people. Those are your friends. Make friends with those people. And if you are the way you are and people don't like you the way you are, then those are the people you'd best leave alone and not make friends with and let them make friends with somebody else. So it all just works out. If you're just who you are, you're honest, you say what you think, then other people who also are that way will be drawn to you and you to them. And those that, live through an image, a persona, they'll find other people who live through images and personas that are compatible with theirs. And they will have these very shallow relationships with people because they don't ever engage themselves. They're just engage their persona. So it's much better just to be who you are and let that separate the people who like you and don't like you, and that's fine. Don't worry about the people who don't like you because they're not the people you want to hang around with anyway. Better that they be gone out of your circle of friends. Have a circle of friends that do like you just because you are you. That then they can be real friends. And real friends are very important and very significant. Shallow friends that are all trying to play to an image and impress each other with their style or whatever, those are not friends you could count on anyway. So if they walk off, well, say goodbye and good riddance. Yeah, you don't need people like that in your life. So that's why it's better just to be you, and don't try to be who you think you should be and try to be the way people would like you. Just be the way you are. And if that doesn't play well, if you are the way you are and that creates a problem, well, then you probably need to change how you are. You probably need to look at that and say, well, all right, I'm always aggressive, or I'm always this, or I'm always that. And that doesn't seem to play well. So I need to be different. I need to, maybe the next time I'm being social, I just need to be quiet and listen and observe and see how other people are. Not that I'm going to copy them with a different image, but just kind of see how people interact with each other. And how does that seem to work? Be the kind of the strong silent type for a while and don't have a whole lot to say, but be very aware of what's going on. That's fine. You can be that way and then learn and then change who you are. Because maybe you're aggressive, or maybe you talk too much and you manipulate or monopolize the floor. You always want to be in the spotlight or something, and that's just the way you are. And that, people may not like that. So think, well, maybe I should change. How could I be different that I'd end up with good friends who were really the nice people that I could be myself with? Well, then say, man, okay, I always need the spotlight because if I don't get the spotlight, I feel inferior. So then you could say, well, I'm just going to be quiet for a while. I'm not going to be in the spotlight and see how that feels. So you change yourself, you grow. Or I'm always shy. I'm always in the periphery and I never have anything to say. Well, I'm going to try to change that. I'm going to have some things I want to talk about. And when those subjects come up, I'll bring those subjects up. So you start to be differently, not act differently. It's not a persona, it's being differently. And eventually you'll find out who you are. You'll try on all sorts of different faces and clothes and beings and ways to be, and you'll find who you are, what you feel good. When I'm like this, I feel good. And it works for me. I find a lot of people that like me, and I like them. Well, now you're on the right path. So again, life is trial and error. Life isn't think about it, come up with the right solution, and then do it. Life doesn't work like that. Life is, I don't have any idea. I'm going to find out. So I'll try this and I'll try that. I don't know who I am, actually. I've been living in an image and in fear so long, I don't know who I am. So I'm going to try this and try that and see what happens and see how I feel about those things, but not with the idea that I'm finding the perfect persona, but the idea I'm going to find out who I am. So even if you don't know, you might be at square one or maybe square zero. Doesn't matter. Just go out, connect, be, interact, and then learn and grow from the results. That's how life works. It's a experimental science. You just have to be it, but be observant and learn from it. Don't have the idea that you have to make the rest of the world come to you. You just have to be yourself, and the right people will come to you, and the wrong people will walk away. And that's just the way it ought to be.
Man, it's all gold. I love it. That's so great to hear. And I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing that too.
Love is the answer. If there's one way to discover this truth that Tom Campbell, physicist and consciousness expert, has concluded, it is through your own experience. Give yourself the gift of experiencing yourself. After all, Tom has stated so many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So learn to experience with Tom's Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program, and unlock those natural abilities for yourself. Discover why love is the answer. Binaural beats included to assist you. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.